Welcome to Speak for America. I'm Bill Spadea, and I'm happy you're here for our brand new show. Whether it's the biggest stories shaping the nation and the world, or the local issues that hit home in New Jersey, California, and communities all across the country, we're on it. America, we've got you covered. Let's jump right in. Primary elections in several states this week. In Wisconsin, Socialist State Representative Francesca Hong suffered a major setback, losing the Democrat gubernatorial primary to Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. The DSA-backed progressive was defeated by the establishment-backed Crowley, who was heavily supported by outgoing Governor Tony Evers. Crowley now advances to face Republican Tom Tiffany in the general election. Of note, though, both candidates topped 300,000 votes, so the Democratic Party still has a socialist issue they need to deal with. Appointed Senator Darlene Graham has advanced to a runoff in South Carolina's special Republican Senate primary. The sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham failed to secure a majority in a crowded field that included Reps Ralph Norman and Russell Fry, plus former Governor Mark Sanford. She will face one other contender in 2 weeks. President Trump endorsed Graham, who was appointed last month to finish her brother's term. In Minnesota, House Speaker Lisa DeMuth has won the Republican primary for governor, defeating MyPillow founder Mike Lindell, who was endorsed by President Trump. DeMuth will now face Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar in the November general election. In Connecticut, Democrat Governor Ned Lamont easily defeated progressive challenger Josh Elliott in Tuesday's primary. The moderate incumbent secured the nomination and will face Republican State Senator Ryan Fazio in the November general election. In Vermont, progressive economist Amanda Janu narrowly won the Democrat primary for governor Tuesday, edging out Allie Richards. Janu will now face popular Republican incumbent Phil Scott in the November general election. In Alabama, Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, endorsed by President Trump, easily won the GOP primary for governor. He's going to face Democratic former Senator Doug Jones in a November rematch of their 2020 U.S. Senate race. So a $20 burrito has become the unlikely flashpoint in America's ongoing affordability crisis. What started as a college student's complaint that a burrito shouldn't cost $20 has ignited a fiery debate across the political spectrum, especially within the Republican Party. Congressman Dan Crenshaw in Texas called the hand-wringing dumb, telling Americans to, quote, stop whining, get a job, and eat ramen like the rest of us did in college. Vice President J.D. Vance pushed back against critics who dismissed the concern. Turning Point USA's Andrew Colvett warned that ignoring voters' real anxiety over everyday prices would be political malpractice. Food, housing, energy, and everyday goods still feel out of reach for millions of families years after the pandemic lockdown era inflation surge. Joining us now to dig into what's driving the crisis and what can be done about it and what it means for the upcoming November midterms is Patrick Allocco, founder and CEO of Zoose, the AI-driven tech company that also produces data-backed political and economic analysis. Patrick, great to see you again. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Bill.
So, Patrick, let's start with the burrito. I mean, you never know in politics what's going to become the flashpoint. So you've got Crenshaw out there saying, stop whining and get a job. Others saying, this is the kind of kitchen table pain that politicians ignore at their peril. So what you're seeing at Zoose, talk about what the data is showing you, because this has really exposed something that is driving a wedge, I think, in the Republican Party, making them very vulnerable to what's coming up in November.
It is, Bill. And as you and I have had a chance to talk about before, when this cohort, especially among the independents, the 18 to 30-year-olds, and what we identified even last year, going back to the New Jersey primary, is this 21 to 44-year-old, low engagement, low information female who really doesn't care much about politics. All she hears is what's going on in her social media feed. She's trying to make ends meet, live her life. And when she hears Crenshaw, who, as I told you, I respect greatly, a Navy SEAL, that, this is a guy that he has a message, and it should be heard that, yes, if you're a pollster and you're looking at our overall optimism, you have to conclude that America's kind of a complaining country, and I can speak to that. But
Yeah,
uh, I think what they hear is let them eat cake, and by cake I mean a Twinkie. And how does that impact? Well, the Republicans were brought in to do a job. Trump
right.
was reelected in 24 for three real reasons. One is, first thing was the border, to fix the border. Secondly, was to fix affordability. And thirdly, to get things done. And that carried right through New Jersey in the gubernatorial primary, as you
Yeah.
know, and the general election. These were the issues that Republicans needed to fix. And what keeps coming back to me, the two questions that come back to me, you and I both know the answers to them, is why did Donald Trump have to impose tariffs, and why did he have to go to a war with Iran? Because Trump could have effortlessly tried to run a Reagan style second term prosperity presidency, could
Yeah.
have lowered taxes, deregulate, unleash energy, let the economy run, take the political victory. Instead, he deliberately traded short term economic political stability for what I think he believes are longer term strategic gains. And that's the paradox heading into the
Yeah.
midterms. Will
Well,
voters punish Trump's affordability for the
right.
disruption and his ambition?
Well, and it exposed this split on the right about messaging, right? You've got the tough love crowd, and I get that. Look, I served in the Marine Corps. I understand this idea that hey, we got to toughen up. We say this in our family. You got to raise kids a little tougher. All that's good. However, you've got late 20s, early 30s. These are folks that are paying $800 a month for student loans for a degree they got and a job that can barely pay back the student loan, let alone move them ahead. And is it tough love versus affordability, real affordability? I mean, I talked to a nurse yesterday on my radio show, and she said, we're paying $500 a week now in groceries. That's 3 bags of groceries. That was $250, pre-pandemic. So in the minds of real people, it's doubled. And you hear the president talking about the stock market. That's great, but that's not impacting that nurse that's working on the front lines of healthcare. It's not impacting the police officer, the bus driver. So let me understand, Patrick, from your perspective on messaging, where does the Republican Party need to go? Because right now you've got the Democrat socialists hitting the tone of affordability. And we know the end of that socialist road, that is not a good place. That is not a place you want to be. Talk about short-term positive feeling for long-term pain and misery. What does the party need to do right now, specifically the candidates running, to save their own jobs and keep this majority?
Well, you've nailed it. And you were out on the campaign trail and you saw it firsthand. What is this 21 to 44-year-old female that we call the Phoenix voter, the one
Hmm.
that's out there? She goes to Starbucks, she's got 3 kids, she's shuffling them off to games every day. Her issues are healthcare, food, housing, gas. Those are her realities that she lives with every day. And what we've been saying for well over a year and a half is you need to make this real to the voters. And personally, I have not seen it yet. I see a disconnect between the macroeconomics and the affordability real issues that this person is facing every day. How did I say they should go about it? I felt that you should build an army of influencers on TikTok to start with that sit there and can authentically tell their story on how things have gotten better. But my whole point in the earlier question was Trump chose a different strategy. And quite honestly, that Phoenix voter that we identified doesn't understand or relate to the long term, to short term pain for long term gain. And I think the messaging really has to focus in the next 80 days, needs to be really micro tuned to those specific issues and how people are dealing with them in their daily lives.
Patrick, let me ask you, we've had a number of conversations, and this is kind of a little off the topic of the midterms. But one thing that I've been talking about and hearing from the field, the political boots that are on the ground, is that we are in this wrestling match inside the Republican Party. That you've got the Trump MAGA world that has kind of lost the way a little bit with the endless wars and the high cost of everything. But on the other side, a lot of folks saying we're already in a post-Trump Republican Party. We're in a post-Trump world because he can't run again, although he's very effective in primary battles. Not so much when it comes to Mike Lindell and some others, but less effective when it comes to the general. How do the Republican candidates get accustomed to this post-Trump world, and what does it look like? I mean, what does the Republican Party stand for these days?
So you're speaking in the immediate. You're speaking to turnout. Will people turn out? If they don't see, if they see endless wars and they see those issues that you're speaking to on one side, they may just stay home, and that's what makes this race
Yeah.
so very difficult to call. Bill, there is a realignment in the Republican Party right now. Right now, though, the advantage Republicans have is the contrast that we have to Democrats. They're not going to defect and vote for an ideology or the policies of the Democratic Party that you see them putting out there right now. So
Right.
when you
Too
start
radical.
looking at the polls, when you look at the polls, it almost still looks like 93% will vote with Trump and they will be solidly behind him. So in that respect, Trump hasn't lost control of the party by
Yeah.
any means. But the realignment then becomes, where does it go? Does it go to Vance? Does it go to Rubio? Does it go to another faction of the party right now? Of course, you hear about the Tucker Carlsons of the world and forming another party. Does that become an issue at any point?
Hmm.
Uh, Remains to be seen. We're watching it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you also, I would throw in Ron DeSantis's name. I mean, I think, he upset a lot of folks in the MAGA world. There was a lot of that tension. Oh, if you like DeSantis, you must not like Trump. But you look at this running record he's got as governor of Florida, and it's pretty aggressive, the stuff going on, and super positive results. So you're right. We're going to see. I will say this, and just tell me the last few seconds. I'm not going to ask you to make any predictions, but it would seem to me that if you look at the Democrat Party, it's not going to be enough just to call them out as socialists and communists. The Republicans are going to have something positive to build on.
Bill, that's the socialist communist, the communist free market argument is the Hail Mary pass. You've got
Yeah.
right now, we've got the scoreboard 216 Republicans, 215 Democrats,
Ooh,
4 seats uncalled. That's where we're
wow.
at right now. And those 4 seats uncalled, is, two of them are social, two of them are progressives, two of them are just mainstream Democrats that the Republicans will be
Yeah.
running against. Those will be the affordability. They are
Yep.
all going to need to address this affordability issue, which you have really granularly drilled down on, and I think that's where we need to be in the next 80 days.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep talking about it for sure. Patrick Allocco, founder and CEO of Zoose, I thank you. And of course, Patrick, we can see you every Monday on Newsmax, 8 o'clock on Finity. I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Bill. Great to be here.
Right now, though, I want to check in with one of our great sponsors, Larry Steinhaus's financial tip of the week, real world money advice you were never taught in school, from investing in passive income to protecting your wealth and making smarter financial moves. What do you have for us today, Larry?
Hey, I got some great stuff for you today. I'm Larry Steinhaus, and here is your financial tip of the week. Stop giving politicians credit for your wallet. Ugh. Here's a thought that that might make some people very uncomfortable. The president is not responsible for your financial success or failure. Neither is your governor, your senator, your mayor, or your favorite cable news channel. Now, look, before you guys start sending me angry emails and maybe even create a hater meter for me, politicians can absolutely influence the economy. They can affect taxes, regulations, interest rates, and government spending. Yes, those things matter, but here's what matters even more: your decisions. Look, I've met people who made millions under Republican presidents. I've met people who made millions under Democrat presidents. And I've met broke people who blame both. The stock market has created wealth under virtually every administration. Real estate investors have built fortunes under every administration. Business owners have succeeded under every administration. Why? Because successful people spend less time complaining about Washington and more time focusing on what they can control. You can control how much you save. You can control how much you learn. You can control whether you invest. You can control whether you start that side business. You can control whether you spend your evenings watching the news or improving your financial IQ. I see people who can tell every detail of the latest political controversy, but they can't explain the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. They know the latest poll numbers, but they have no idea what their net worth is. And that's backwards. Politics is interesting. Your financial future is much more important. The truth is, no politician is coming to make you rich, no election is going to magically solve your money problems, and no government program will ever care more about your family's future than you do. So instead of asking, who's going to win the next election, ask yourself, what am I going to do this week to improve my financial future? Because whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or something else entirely, the path to wealth has always been the same. Learn more, earn more, invest more, complain less. And that's the financial tip, no matter who's sitting in the White House. By the way, if you're hoping someone will fix your finances, of course you know it's not going to happen. So the best way to invest in the future is come see me at Investor Schooling. Go to investorschooling.com and I will teach you everything that school never taught you. I'm Larry Steinhaus, Investor Schooling.
Larry Steinhaus, thank you very much. Remember, visit investorschooling.com. Six years after the height of the pandemic lockdowns and mandates, Capitol Hill still holding hearings on COVID origins, response, and accountability. Critics call much of it political theater, high drama sessions that generate headlines and fundraising clips, but deliver little new insight or practical reform. Meanwhile, the lasting damage from the COVID era, shifting guidance, overstatements, suppressions, and contradictions continue to erode public confidence in the medical and public health establishment. Joining us now is Tiffany Ryder, emergency medicine physician associate, former frontline clinician during COVID, healthcare advocate, and host focused on transparency and informed consent. Tiffany, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill.
So, Tiffany, we've had some exchanges online, and you practiced emergency medicine throughout the pandemic. And from your frontline perspective, what is your hot take on what we're seeing on these COVID hearings? Because I've shared this publicly on both on the air and on social media that it's political theater. And, I'm watching Fauci take the Fifth Amendment 111 times, but it doesn't seem that this is going anywhere. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think it's complex, and I think it matters which lens you're looking through. So will we get some sort of criminal referral? I don't know. Will accountability look the way maybe some people want it to? Probably not. But when I'm looking at this just as a clinician who has seen hundreds, thousands of patients, we are seeing a form of accountability in that patients knew from the onset that what they were being told was different than what they were seeing with their own eyes. And I think what we are seeing, at least in the public sphere, is even the people who want Fauci to actually answer the questions instead of pleading the Fifth 111 times, they're still feeling like their thoughts and concerns and things that they observed are being heard and are being brought out into the spotlight, because for a lot of people, they were silenced on those exact themes that are being asked.
Tiffany, how do we get back to confidence? I mean, I had a great interview many years ago. It was 2021 at the height of all this, where the head of security at Gotham Comedy Club in New York was hospitalized. He was on a vent. I mean, they were looking at him like this guy was not going to make it. And his doctor intervened. He got hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, walked out of the hospital 24 hours later. We know that we've got medical advancements out there. We know some of the old treatments work best. What do we need to do to get to a point where we can get the bureaucrats and the insurance companies out of it and let doctors and patients just have conversations about how they treat whatever the next thing is going to be?
Yeah, what a question, right? When did we move into a space where that is even up for debate, right? Where healthcare has nothing to do with a doctor and their patient. You know, I think the silver lining of COVID, as horrible as it was, as draconian, as close to totalitarian takeover as we
Yeah.
came,
Yeah.
I mean, just horrific things that I never imagined I would see in my lifetime. But as bad as all of that was, really the silver lining is we have access to normal everyday Americans' thoughts and belief systems, right? It's like people really opened up and said, man, I used to think I could just run my business and trust my doctor with my health. But, turns out like even the doctors, maybe they're scared of getting fired. Maybe they're scared of going to jail, getting their license taken away. Maybe there's more going on here than really meets the eye. And I think that is where the power lies and where this shift is occurring is patients are no longer satisfied to put up with whatever they're being told by their corrupt health insurance company or by pharma. They're asking
Well,
different questions.
do you think, though, that doctors have a responsibility too? I've said this on the air and on social media as well, that, we are one of the only countries in the world that allow big pharma to advertise on our media networks, New Zealand being the other one. And there seems to be too many doctors out there just willing to push pills, et cetera. And, the solution is always a pill. It's not change your diet, it's take a pill to make it faster. It's not change your lifestyle habits. It's let's take a pill for it. Do you think we're going to get back to that point? And what's the pressure on these doctors? Has big pharma just simply become too powerful?
There is no pressure outside of the patient at the bedside. In my experience, right, the hospital protocols support whatever big pharma is pushing out. The CDC is happy to say that we should give Tamiflu to happy, healthy 5-year-olds who
Yeah.
maybe aren't at risk of severe complications. I mean, everything pushes you towards doing more because we're really at there's a different set of risks with saying, I really don't think that this is indicated in your case, but that case is the one in a million where it may have helped, than it is to overtreat. Overtreating and overtesting is the preferred method because it feels like the less risky method for the institutions. And I think where we have to get to is as a patient saying, I hear you, but you are my very highly educated, highly paid consultant. And why are you recommending what we're recommending? And until patients do that, I'm not sure that we will see much in the way of change.
How about parents, Tiffany? Just want to wrap up with this because you still have a lot of mandates in a lot of states in terms of what you have to give your kids in terms of shots to have school access. The president did a good thing saying essentially trying to give parents the right to be able to sue if they've been discriminated against on vaccine status. But I can tell you from a perspective in New Jersey, you're going to have a really hard time making that case, even with the president's executive order. So where do we need to get on that? And I say that because it seems that this is more about profiteering and rolling out the next drug than it is about actual health of our kids.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Certainly the incentive structure supports that line of thinking, right? When you have a product that has zero controls on it, zero legal liability for any harms, of course you would expect to see more of that and expect to see that, pushed. As far as parents go, I can say don't give up. It's a very difficult situation. I am, routinely talking to parents in states that are not friendly to this idea that we should have medical freedom and sort of the right to make our own risk benefit calculation. And it's tough. Their parents get CPS called on them. It is not an easy landscape.
Yeah.
There are organizations that can help. There's a legal process. Some people are gratefully able to move, but it's tough, and it would be disingenuous to pretend otherwise.
Yeah, real quick as we wrap up, Tiffany, are there any vaccines or treatments that are out there in these schedule of shots that you think are less threatening, or should they all be subject to a stronger review?
I would say they should all be subject to a stronger review. When you actually dig in there, I recently read Aaron Siri's book cover to cover several times. But when you start actually looking at the research that's actually been done, it doesn't always tell the story that you've heard. And I'm not saying that I know the answers, because I certainly don't, because the science hasn't actually been done. The science that needs to have been done hasn't been done in a way that I think we can have utmost confidence. And so reviewing that should do nothing but encourage people to get vaccinated if, in fact, these vaccines are safe.
Right, exactly. More knowledge is better. Tiffany Ryder, thank you.
Always.
Great to talk to you. We'll have you back.
Thanks.
Massachusetts has just become the 10th state, and plus the District of Columbia, that allows abortion up to the moment of birth. That's right, abortion up to the moment of birth. Democratic Governor Maura Healey signed the Prioritizing Patient Access to Care Act, removing the state's previous 24-week limit and giving doctors broad discretion to perform abortions later in pregnancy without legal penalty. Massachusetts, as I said, becomes the 10th state, along with D.C., to eliminate gestational age restrictions. Of course, New Jersey already on that list. Now, supporters call it a necessary shield for women's health and medical decision-making. Critics, including national pro-life leaders, call it extreme, pointing out that the United States is now among only a handful of countries in the world that permit abortion throughout pregnancy. Joining me now to react is my friend Marie Tasy, who is the executive director of New Jersey Right to Life. Marie, always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is, it's heartbreaking to see. I don't know what was worse, the fact that people think this is women's health care, or the fact that you had doctors and medical professionals applauding and cheering as the governor signed this bill. It was off-putting. And she's saying, of course, she's standing with women and their healthcare decisions. What's your response to how the Democrats are framing this?
It's just, across the board what they're doing in all the states, including New Jersey. They're totally beholden to the abortion industry. Clearly, they don't care about women. These people are just looking to see, what their next, political office might be that they want to run for. It's very sad. I did note that a lot of people are commenting on social media in disgust about the bill and the signing. People really are just horrified. There's no reason that they had to amend the law to do away with what little limitations that they had that limited abortions after 24 weeks. And I mean, babies are surviving now earlier and earlier. They're doing all kinds of surgeries, in the womb. And there was just a situation recently where, a baby had intestines growing outside its body, and they actually went in and repaired it.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just, there's absolutely no reason for this. It's just a very sad situation. The pro-life movement, we're always going to be out there helping women and children. And to the credit of Massachusetts Citizens for Life, which is an affiliate of National Right to Life as we are, they've put out a wonderful resource on late-term abortion to help women who are contemplating this, that there are, there is help, there's options, there's resources. It's a wonderful piece, and I'm just so proud of them for doing this. And, I just wanted to make sure that information got out there, because I think it's just so important for, women who are being given, the dire diagnosis about their children, or women who feel they can't have the child because of financial circumstances. There's just no reason for this. Babies can survive, and people want to adopt them. So, it's very sad.
And you've done a great job with that as well with New Jersey Right to Life, njrtl.org, where you can go. And I've said this multiple times on TV, on radio, that if you are a woman in crisis and you've got an unexpected, unplanned pregnancy, there are resources. And we tell people that you can go to your site, njrtl.org, and there is a list of all the pregnancy resource centers, not going to cost you anything. And they offer the medical opportunities to have you understand what's going on with your body and know that there are options outside of what essentially has become a government push toward one option, which of course it flies in the face of the idea of choice. Now, I want to ask you about this no gestational limit, because I
Mhm.
remember the former governor in Virginia was called out on a radio show and talked about how had to own up to the fact that a baby could actually be put on a table to die. And you know, the Democrats for years, I'm old enough to remember that they told us that can't
Mhm.
happen, that won't happen. This is simply
Right.
not true. What is the practical reality of having no gestational limit on abortion?
There's no protection for babies who are born alive. It's very, very sad. It's horrific. And, we're seeing it, like you said, with some of these individuals who are running for office who are admitting, well, you just leave the baby to die. And we have supported legislation that would protect babies who are born alive from abortions. But of course, it hasn't gotten anywhere. Bills have been introduced in the New Jersey legislature. Again, they're not moving. Yeah, on the federal level, I believe the House has passed it, but the Senate hasn't. It's crazy. They did pass a law about 25 years ago, but it had no teeth to protect babies that are born alive from abortion. So as a result, it's happening. It's occurring.
And just politically speaking, I mean, that seems to be an 80-20 issue where there will be very few people that would argue you should not protect a baby that's born alive.
Yes, and there have been many people who are alive today who survived abortions. There's an abortion survivors network, and there's one woman in particular, Melissa Oden, who's been very outspoken. She's testified a number of times before Congress. She spoke at our March for Life. So when they say this doesn't happen, she's evidence that it does. And there are many others like her. But they've been fortunate to survive because someone, obviously took pity on them and made sure they got the care that they needed. But, as a result, many of them have lifelong, health problems.
Marie, do you think that the pro-life side, and not speaking to your group or National Right to Life in particular, just more the Republicans who campaign as pro-life, do they have a messaging problem? It seems to me that they always get twisted in knots because the other side right away comes out and says, we don't want
Mhm.
government involved in a decision between a
Right.
doctor and a woman. But the other side of that is women deserve a choice. And between 85 and 90% of women who have an ultrasound that see the baby growing inside them say, I want to bring this baby to term, but there
Mhm.
are limited resources. There are almost no government resources for that. All the government resources are on abortion. Is this a question of changing the messaging? And how do you get through to some of these candidates well, let's just say this, toughen them up to stand up for women and children?
All we can do is, obviously, give them talking points, provide evidence, the scientific facts. And you have to just hope that they, are principled enough to be able and have the courage enough to speak about this. So often, they'll give you lip service. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then, of course, unfortunately, they're afraid, or the consultants will tell them, oh no, don't talk about abortion. It's a losing issue. I mean, we see this all the time in New Jersey, and there are many, elected officials and people who run who, do stand up for life and, are not afraid to speak about it. And, we clearly have to support those people and encourage them. But,
Yeah,
their consultants are always telling them, don't talk about it. It's a losing issue. It's a losing issue. But it's not a losing issue if you frame it properly and you have the
right.
facts.
Well, it's, I mean, just going back to an election not too long ago, it was framed when I said the word choice and I was
Mhm.
attacked for that. And of course, what they completely missed by taking it out of context was there is no choice in New Jersey. It is one directional. That's it.
Right.
You are forced into this funnel to Planned Parenthood profiteering on terminating pregnancies and taking away life. And instead, what we ought to be talking about is why aren't we opening up this opportunity for the 85 to 90% of women who want to choose life and bring this baby into the world? That's where we should put our resources. And by the way, on a fiscal note, the estimates are that for every dollar you invest in a pregnancy resource center, you save anywhere between $2 and $8 on the social services side, because this is true support for women. So, Marie, do me a favor, share with me, text me that link, because I want to put it out on my X
Yes, I
account
will.
and, my at Bill Spadea on X and at Bill Spadea on Instagram, what Massachusetts put out, because I think people need to, look, education is your friend here. More knowledge is better. And I'd like
Right.
to share that,
Absolutely.
especially to help these young women. Thank you. Marie
Absolutely.
Tasy,
Thank you.
Executive Director of New Jersey Right to Life. Always great to see you.
Same here, Bill. Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.
You got it. Coming up, new details reveal an extraordinary Secret Service operation that secretly moved President Trump off Air Force One during his departure from the NATO summit after a credible Iranian assassination threat. We'll discuss the deception, the use of decoys, and the security trade-offs with former Marine and counterterrorism specialist Greg Sanfilippo. That's coming up next. Stick with us. But right now, a word from another great sponsor, Dr. Adriana Lombardi, Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center of NJ.
Here at the Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center, we really love to get to know our patients. We want to work together with them to reach their goals and make them feel the most comfortable they can. I was planning to open the Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center. I wanted a personalized approach to medicine. I felt that medicine was getting commercialized in general, and I had a vision of opening my own practice, including my sister who's a medical esthetician, and being able to treat the patient as a whole. We offer cosmetic procedures, we offer skin cancer surgery, we have general dermatology visits, and different types of non-invasive aesthetic treatments all under one roof.
I focus on non-invasive treatments that help better your skin health and help you also feel good from the inside out.
I try to approach each patient like a family member. I really love to get to know my patients. We have their best interests in mind, so we want to hold their hand on their journey of feeling better about themselves or getting the right treatment done.
Whether it's something non-invasive to something more invasive, we want to make sure that we're thoroughly explaining what the procedure entails, and we're also managing their expectations so we are both on the same page when it comes to results.
Here in the office, I made a promise that we would always use the highest end technology, the most innovative technology and techniques for our patients.
That goes from cool sculpting to Cutera's microneedling device that also is for skin tightening. And then we have different types of lasers by the Luminous that also deliver great results for pigmentation or scars, wrinkles, anything you're looking to address.
After the procedures in our office, our patients often feel so much better about themselves, and people go about life a little bit differently when you have more confidence. So I really feel like it's so important to be the best version of yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Adriana Lombardi, Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center of New Jersey. Visit sccsnj.com. Welcome back to Speak for America. I am Bill Spadea. New reports detail an extraordinary security operation during President Trump's departure from the NATO summit in Turkey last month. Facing what officials describe as a credible Iranian assassination threat, the president was secretly moved off of the traditional Air Force One via a catering truck and onto a smaller military aircraft. Journalists and some White House staff aboard the larger plane were left believing he was traveling with them, effectively serving as unknowing decoys. The president had arrived on a newly gifted Qatari jet, but publicly switched to the older baby blue Air Force One for the first leg home, later explaining it was partly so U.S. troops in England could see the new plane. Was this standard protective procedure, and did it unnecessarily put civilians at risk? Joining us to discuss is Greg Sanfilippo, a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran and NYPD sergeant specializing in intelligence and counterterrorism, now vice president at Doyle Security Services in New York. Greg, good to have you here.
Oh, my pleasure, Bill.
So let's talk about it. Reports say the operation was prompted by an assassination threat against the president. I have, and maybe a lot of Americans are feeling the same thing. This made me think, do we not have confidence in the plane the president is flying on? It was actually a little jarring to learn that they had to move him in a catering truck to get him on another plane. Is this standard procedure, and should we not be concerned?
Extraordinary story, especially it coming out so soon from the incident. This is not out of the ordinary, though. It's happened before. Most notably, it was around 2006, Bill Clinton flying in and out of Turkey in and out of Pakistan for a visit. And that story came out where they were doing some deception operations with that. It just usually the story just doesn't come out. It's done behind the scenes. When there's a credible threat, you're making those changes on the fly to getting the protectee, in this case President Trump, in and out safely. So the story here is that there is a story. Usually you wouldn't have heard of anything.
Greg, I'm glad you said that because I thought the same thing. I'm like, how did this get out so fast where there was video of the truck pulling up? I'm thinking the fact that information got out, to me, puts the president at future risk and certainly the folks that are traveling with him.
These plans are rehearsed and developed a long time prior to. So it's not just done that day. Like a movie. So them enacting this, they felt the threat was credible. So this was something that they had planned out. It's a critical time because now you're moving the president with a smaller package, right? Because you want that deception. You want the Iranians to think that he was on the plane. So another takeaway is if you're traveling with someone with a security detail and you don't have that detail, you're not the priority. So in this case, part of that deception was to have that plane take off as if the president was on board. Press corps and non-vital staff were on that plane. It's something that you have to consider in your role.
Boy, talk about that being a gut punch, right? How important are you? Well, I was on the decoy plane. But, from your experience in military law enforcement, how common is this kind of deception, false boarding, decoy aircraft? Is this something that is just in practice more times than we think? We just never hear about it?
It's always in practice. Our protection details are constantly trying to get the edge up on possible threats. So, the story is the story that the news got out. Extraordinary that we're watching it and looking at a catering truck. A lot of times it's just changing up the schedule, showing up early, showing up late. You think that protectee just thinks the audience just thinks, wow, this person's just showing up late. All part of the protection plan, just to vary the routes, vary ways in and out, times in and out, and trying to alter the schedule. When we have social media with published schedules, it becomes that much more difficult for the protection team in environments like this.
Is this leading you to believe, though, that we are in a much more dangerous place than perhaps we were years ago? And I mean, you mentioned Bill Clinton, and certainly there have been credible threats against every president. That said, the president himself, President Trump, said, look, he's a consequential president, so therefore he gets more threats than most. But where's your level of confidence on this? In terms of protecting him, we've certainly seen public threats. The man's been shot. I mean, this is a big concern for a lot of us that perhaps we're not in the place we should be.
Not only our intelligence team, but intelligence teams around the world have seen a spike in threats, especially overseas with what's going on in the Middle East. You still have a war going on in Europe between Ukraine and Russia. So the environment that we live in here in the United States, it's far for Iran to touch us here. But when people are traveling abroad, executives, it's the threat environment is much higher than we've seen over the last couple of years with everything going on.
Greg, does it concern you that the seat map of the plane is out? I mean, you can Google it and look at what the plane looks like. I mean, there's video from inside. Is that anything that is potentially compromising?
Digital media and the digital exhaust, as you call it, what's out there, it's a constant challenge, right? When you see events like the press gala. Right? Those things have to be published. You want people out there The social media teams, the marketing teams want that information out there, and the security teams constantly back and forth trying to pull that information down, because it just gives your adversary a leg up on the situational awareness of where people are in that plane, where they might be in a ballroom at an event, ways in and out. It's a constant back and forth.
You think they leaked this on purpose?
We're going to find out if it was someone with security clearance. Like we just saw that story with a retired Air Force general losing his clearance over possible leaks to the security situation with the plane itself. There will be a retribution for someone that put it out, but he's also traveling with a press corps whose job it is to put information out to the public. So perhaps this came just from someone in the press corps. It's very challenging. There's so much interface on that protection, not only Secret Service, but other agencies, local vendors that are there. So it may have just been benign, someone just getting the information and putting it out.
Greg, is it a credible criticism that civilians were put at risk, or is that just an understanding it's part of the job? You're heading into potentially into a threat situation, a war zone or other, or is it credible that that the press corps and the staff has a legitimate gripe?
Depending on where you are in that argument, it's either credible or not. From the protection security team, it's the priority is the protectee. Then once the protectee is secure, you then go back for life safety and securing the scene and other people. And, hear that was done. So if you're one of those other people, you have a gripe, but it comes with the territory. If you're traveling in that environment and you don't have a protection detail, you are not the priority.
Yeah, there you go. The whole thing seemed like something out of a Hollywood movie, maybe James Bond or something. It was pretty wild. Greg Sanfilippo, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
As the nation approaches the 25th anniversary of September 11th, a new documentary offering a distinct perspective on that day, one that honors the profound loss while shining a light on the heroism, resilience, and unity that followed. The heroism and resiliency of 9/11, from tragedy to triumph. Directed and produced by award-winning filmmaker Michael Gier and narrated by Gary Sinise, shares the first-hand accounts of first responders, survivors, families, public servants, and everyday Americans whose courage helped define the aftermath. The film features exclusive interviews with former White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card and former Defense Secretary and CIA Director Leon Panetta, among others. With its Hollywood premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater on August 26th, the documentary aims to preserve these stories of bravery and national unity for future generations. Joining us now, director and producer Michael Gier. Michael, good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
So a lot of the documentaries around 9/11, they focus primarily on the tragedy, on the loss. So what was your motivation? I mean, you kind of turned this around and talked about the stories of unity, resilience, heroism. What inspired it, and how well do you think it's going to be received?
Well, the great news is it's being received tremendously well. It's won 5 Best Documentary Awards, and the audiences that have seen the film, I get to be there. They come up afterwards and in tears give me hugs and say, I was expecting a depressing film, and this film is completely different than that. It's very inspirational. There's stories I've never heard before, and I just want to say thank you. And then they give me this amazing hug. I was approached to do this film, and I agreed to do it with the understanding that I wanted to not just tell another 9/11 film that's already been done. I wanted to do something different. And so I pitched the idea of focusing on the positive things versus the tragedy. And that's what we did with this film, and it's pretty inspirational.
Michael, I love that. And I know that a lot of these stories have moved you. What is one that stands out to you now that you can just share with us?
Well, there are so many stories, but I'll tell you one that always comes to mind first. I think it's Jack Grancolis. He lost his wife and unborn child on Flight 93. And one of the things I love that he says in the film is that afterwards, the press would always ask him, do you hate the terrorists? And he'd always say, no, no. Hate is what caused 9/11. I'm not going down that path. No, I don't hate them. Hate is learned. You're not born hating. Hate is something that is indoctrinated in you. And I just think that's a powerful message of somebody who lost so much who can still say he doesn't hate them. And that's something that needs to change, that whole hate culture within so many communities, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a powerful emotion, because you think about how so many people look for retribution instead of moving on and moving past the emotion. Now, you worked with Gary Sinise on this as a narrator. Very cool. What did his involvement bring to the film, and how did you guys connect?
Well, we just reached out to him and asked if he'd be willing to be part of this film, and he quite honestly just said yes immediately. And so I met him in Nashville, where he lives, and we recorded in the recording studio there. And I got to do an interview with him afterwards and talk to him quite a bit. And what a lot of people don't realize is that 9/11 changed the direction of his life. And he was a big celebrity at the time, and he wanted to use the celebrity to give back. So he started giving back after 9/11 took place. That led to the Lieutenant Dan Band, which led to the Gary Sinise Foundation, which led to everything he's doing today. So it was a very pivotal turning point in his life. And having him be part of this project, of course, Gary Sinise. I mean, everybody loves Gary. So just
cool.
having him be part of it is tremendous credibility for the film itself. And so it's very excited to have him be part of it and support it.
And I hear, I don't know him, but I hear down to earth, genuine, just a nice guy.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And you don't find a lot of those, unfortunately. And he's just, his heart is so genuine.
Yeah.
And very nice guy. And honestly, he agreed to do this before he even found out he was getting paid, which I told him when I first, yeah, exactly. How about that? So I told him when I first met him, I said, that's what impressed me the most. You didn't ask how much am I getting paid? You said yes. And so I want you to know you are getting paid. Good news. But but that wasn't why he did it. He does what he does because he really genuinely cares.
Yeah, it's passion and patriotism over a paycheck. I love it. Now, the documentary includes interviews former White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card, former Secretary of Defense and CIA Director Leon Panetta. What were their perspectives? What do they offer in terms of the storyline of unity and resilience?
Well, Andy Card, of course, was right by the president's side, the day it took place and every day after. He was the one who whispered into the president's ear at that elementary school, the country's under attack. So he offered quite a bit. So he's throughout the whole documentary. Of course, Leon Panetta, the former CIA director who found Osama bin Laden and led the mission that took him out, had a tremendous information about that whole activity. And just we also have Roger Ferguson, who headed up the Federal Reserve on 9/11 because Alan Greenspan was out of the country. And what a lot of people don't know is he saved this country from financial disaster. He's an unsung hero. The decisions that Roger made, literally, we could have been in a much bigger depression than we were in the 20s. But his decisions, he and his team, really protected us and saved us from that financial disaster. And we do a story about the boat lift, which is 500,000 people being rescued off the southern tip of Manhattan. I hired actors, and we did a lot of reenactments for the Flight 93 with the passengers fighting back against the terrorists. Do a story about Will Jimeno. He and his sergeant were buried 30 feet down below the towers for over 10 hours.
Amazing.
So I hired actors, and we recreated that whole set and tell that story. And there are just so many inspirational stories. And like I mentioned earlier, some that many people have never even heard before. But the point is, it's all inspirational, hopeful, uplifting. And it's a very powerful film.
You're really highlighting the greatness of America through individual acts of heroism, and I think it's fantastic. Hollywood premiere set for August 26th at the TCL Chinese Theater. I am looking forward to seeing it. Michael, thank you. Thanks for joining me and talking about this, and thanks for doing what you're doing and bringing these stories to light. Director, producer, Michael Gier. Appreciate you.
Hey, can I say one more quick thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Just that the film, it is available also on streaming platforms, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google TV, and YouTube Movies. And it is available now. And so watch it, share it, and enjoy it.
I love it. Michael Gier, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. I enjoyed spending the time with you today and look forward to continuing to speak for America. I am Bill Spadea. Keep the faith and keep the fight. I'll see you next time.